My name is Convos, host of Starter Convos. Just had a beautiful conversation with Banele Khoza, who's the founder and owner of BKhz, visionary, artist, poet, soon to be author, probably author already. Had a beautiful conversation about art, life, the integration of humanity, and just growth. Hope you enjoy the conversation. Cool. So I think I don't like introductions. I think we'll introduce you at the end. Okay. But I think maybe let's start with the conversation of, I've been thinking about this idea of creation, right? And the privilege of creation, in fact. Who gets to create? Who holds that conversation? And I've had this question, why do you create? Like, what was the first thing that ever got you to think about creation and actually start doing it?
I think for me it was, because I remember I was so young and I still struggle with it, the idea of sitting and not doing anything. I think I was curious since I was like a little child. So every time I got bored, I'd be like, what do I do now? And I didn't have that many friends, so it was a lot of alone time, which is still the same right now. And in that alone time, I was like, okay, maybe you can do that. So it started off with wanting to be a hairdresser, because immediately my mom wanted me to, like every night she'd be like, okay, and
the one you have right now.
yes. No, actually I would start like from the beginning, like do like braid her hair and then she can go sleep. Yeah. And so I thought that's something. I would see salons operating. I'm like, okay, I guess I can have a salon and do that. But unfortunately, community does not allow that for boys.
Because it's considered largely a female thing to do.
Yes, and also quite weird for a boy to be wanting to do that at such an early age. So they just like they kind of shushed me away from it. And even when I went to the salons, because I started with my parents, and then I went to the salons, I'm like, can you please teach me? And they're like, you're too young for that. And then it was like, okay, then what do I do at this time? And then I think I was also aware of my emotions, that I was a very emotional kid. Not in a sense of like I just wanted to cry or be dramatic. I just knew there was a lot of...
You felt more.
Yeah. I guess it's sensitivity as well. And immediately I started like keeping a diary. I was like, oh, the girls write a diary. How about you keep a diary as well? And I think that's where the creation aspect began.
So you were keeping the diary in essence to capture the emotions that you were feeling?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. And the experiences in relation to the experiences. Yeah.
It's interesting that you talk about feeling in relation to creation. Because in essence, you kind of have to feel something to be able to create it.
I think,
Not really? No?
I don't know, for some people, I feel like if I say yes, it would be like biased, because I'm always feeling and then responding towards that. But I think that some people, I guess maybe they hide it, they won't acknowledge that they felt something and created, because some people could be like, I didn't have to feel anything, I just thought of something and did it. Yeah, but I think for me personally, it's a lot of feelings. Yeah.
What's the most visceral thing that you've ever felt? Like the strongest emotion that you've felt and you've actually put it out as a creation?
It's a creation. I feel like I'd have to think about that a lot, but I know recently, I saw a friend of mine that I really liked. I think they're my highlight this year, literally, because I love them so much. And I think it taught me, or it showed me how much I can love in a relation, even though it felt like, what do you call that word? Unrequited.
Oh,
felt
right. Okay, so
unrequited.
you love the person, but it's not really returned as much.
Yeah. Also not returned in the way I wanted it. Yes. And so we hadn't spoken since July, and I went to an event and they were there, and this is like 3 months later, and just seeing them and knowing I know so much about this person, but in my reality it feels like they've almost like they've passed on, but they're alive.
They've moved beyond you.
Yeah, there's a loss. Yeah, so I'm feeling you deal with the loss, the grieving and everything of someone who's around. So when I saw them, they just hugged me and they moved on. And yeah,
That's the
that was a lot. Like, but what it helped me with, because I've been afraid to tap in to just creating by myself, especially with painting. And I've been afraid of that for like 3 years. And after that experience, literally on Monday, I made about 20-something paintings.
just
On that emotion, yeah. But mostly the emotion, like how I just had to get it out. Yeah.
Is that part of the work that you're currently showing in the space?
Yes.
Okay, what was that feeling? I mean, yes, you've spoken about the fact that it felt like a little bit of a loss.
But also love. A lot of love.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So it was an attachment to what was.
Or still is. That's the other thing, because I don't think you'll always love people. Like, I don't think when you stop, some people say they stop loving people. I just think you, like, suppress it. But I think when I saw them, I was like, oh, I still really care for you. Yeah. So I never, like, placed it aside and be like, okay, I won't feel that anymore.
It's a pretty high compliment to even create work, based off just that feeling for this one person in this one experience that would sit in your space. Does this person know about this?
Well, they don't know. They wouldn't know because they're not talking to me. So, but I wish they know. So, yeah.
Okay.
Even if I communicate with them, there's no response. So it's like.
Yeah.
What's the first thing that you do when you wake up? I think when you first came in, you were talking about the fact that you woke up at 4 a.m. You probably did some reading, and you went to gym. But is that like a recurring thing? Do you have another routine maybe that you?
I think what I'm always trying to instill is that when I wake up, I shouldn't be on my phone, but I end up on my phone. So the first thing I'll probably do is check messages, because it's a nice feeling to see that, oh, people are thinking of you while you're sleeping, or there's communication in between. And then immediately I'll probably illustrate on my phone because I've got a pen.
Okay.
So sometimes I'm noting down thoughts in a sense of words, like I'll write poetry. Actually, I wrote something. Do you want me to read it for you?
Yeah, sure, please.
Yeah.
Go ahead, yeah.
It's so interesting.
Was that this morning?
This was this morning, literally this morning when I woke up, and I was amazed by the words. I don't think sometimes we realize how powerful the words we write are. Even especially when you write them yourself, you're just like, this is something.
Yeah, because you also don't want to be narcissistic, and
Yeah.
But the words themselves actually carry an experience that is very unique to you.
And I think for me, it is just like the message. I think I wrote it, I put it on the journal, and then immediately I read it. It was as if I was reading it written by someone else, and I was like, whoa, this is a lot.
Please, go ahead.
Yeah. So it says, God places a dream on us, and it is up to us to follow it through. And what I liked about that is that it's the fact that it's also a choice.
Yes.
Yeah.
God places a dream on us, and it's up to us to follow it through.
Yeah.
That's powerful. I actually felt that. I felt that from the idea that, we often connect with God from a level of God provides, right? And we just have to sit there and sort of wait for this experience to happen. And, there's what's the phrase? Jesus grabbed the wheel, right? As if you're not an active participant in your experience, in your dream, in your vision. But that actually takes me to the other part, which is, yes, God will provide this dream, but the dream is just a door.
Yes.
You actually have to walk through the door and make the choice to do it. That's that's powerful. Where did that come from? Sorry, if I may ask.
Yeah. But also first, let me ask you, do you have that dream? Do you?
Yes, I do. But we're here to talk about dreams. This is not. It doesn't go the other way around. Okay, we're here to talk about dreams.
It's a conversation.
I have many dreams. I wake up, I journal,
Yes.
and I vision board. So I have dreams for myself, and the one thing that I've realized in all of these dreams is exactly that you actually have to make the choice. There's nobody who's, God is not there to make the choice for you. God provides the dream, as you put, which is why I connected to that so much, because you can't have a dream and just sit there and wait for it to happen. So,
That's interesting, yeah. I think on my side, for me it was a literal dream. It wasn't like a mess. I guess it was a message, but it even became a visual, apparent message that this is your path. And this is more on a relationship side, because I think the art side that I knew when I was like very early, like around 11, that okay, this is the dream for you, and I've followed it through, and that's why I've been able to be in this position, because I've followed through that dream. And now, because I've been struggling romantically with just like, I'm just like, why? What's up? And I think 3 to 4 months ago, I basically, literally it was just a conversation between me and God on like, how do I get hold of this person? And
Romantically, you mean?
no, at first it was just like out of interest. I'm just like, how do I get hold of, because I knew the person, but I didn't have contact with them. Only if we're maybe in the same event, but I didn't know how I'd get hold of them.
Yeah.
And literally I was just like, that was my question. And 10 minutes later, they texted me. And I was like, what? Like, I was completely blown away that I immediately shared something on Instagram saying, this is the law of attraction at its best.
Yes.
Because I literally asked, and then it happened without me, like with the least effort.
to talk about that, because I mean, we're often, I suppose there's a certain conditionality that exists, or a framework of thought that says you have to hustle, and be like so resilient in your hustle that you literally like work yourself to death. But you just presented this idea of least effort.
I'm actually still trying to understand it, to be honest, myself, because it's in this book, I think it's by Deepak Chopra, it's called The 7 Spiritual Laws of Success.
Yes.
And
Is that what you're reading now?
No, I read it a while back, but I keep on referencing it back to my life, and I'm still passing that book over to friends.
Yes.
And one chapter is called The Law of Least Effort. And what it speaks about is that grass does not try to grow, it grows.
It just grows, yes.
Same with flowers, they don't try to bloom, they bloom. And then the question with us, like, why do we try so hard? And I think
when we're actually just an extension of nature, we're actually part of it.
We are nature.
Separate from it.
Yeah, we are it. And I think it's in that understanding as well on our side that we have to, like, things take time. And that's why when you asked about the plants, like, why there's so many plants,
Yes.
they remind me of life, that as much as you want things right now, this orchid will take its time. Yes. And I have to understand that on my side as well. So sometimes, yes, you have to work hard, the stuff, but the stuff that you can work hard towards and still not get, and that's life. And then sometimes when you relax, it'll come to you. It's just a matter of, and I like that you touched on the vision board, because sometimes the stuff that you will place down and be like, this is what I want. and if you just relax, sometimes it just comes to you naturally. And for me, it happens a lot where, like yesterday, I had a conversation with someone, like literally I was working on the branding aspect of a product I'm working on. And I think in my mindset, I wanted to know how can I continue this further. And literally without me even trying, someone just walked in, we spoke, just to find out they run a huge chain of stores. And then they just gave me literally a 3-hour conversation where they're just giving me the whole process. And so sometimes if you're in sync with your inner being, because they say God is within us.
Yes.
So if you're connected with that God within you, it makes it possible.
That's interesting to me because, again, this goes back to, this conversation of least effort.
Yes.
It doesn't happen when you're not connected. You absolutely have to be connected to yourself in every single way. Because what I find is that there's just something that keeps telling us, there's an essence that speaks within.
Yes.
But we are surrounded by so much noise that we'd rather, latch onto the noise and leave the essence. And that's actually what drives us, So that's the hustle, actually, the noise and all of the things that are around us. It's like hustling to do this and that, but it's like, the source is such a powerful thing because it's unique to you and only you can connect to that. And when you do connect to it, that's when the least effort,
Things
comes
happen.
through.
Yeah, everything that you want happens.
Has that been true in your life?
Yeah.
Certainly.
Everything that's happening around me. Because I think because I'm quiet, I've been able to listen to myself. So every move that I follow through, it's because I'm listening to my compass. And without that, and sometimes it's scary. It's just like, yeah, you need to do that. And I'm just like, what? It's like almost like jumping like
Follow
a cliff.
through,
Yeah, it's just like, you need to jump this cliff. And I'm just like, and I'll delay it for like 8 months. And when I do, I realize I'm like,
Keeps
whoa.
tapping you on the shoulder.
Yes.
Hey, remember that?
Yes.
You asked for it.
Yes. And it's literally a ride of a lifetime.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
This is incredible. So wait, you said something about you've followed the art dream through since you were, how old did you say, about 11?
I think the space, I had to have a space when I was 11.
Okay.
But I think between 4 and 5, I was already drawing and I was already like marking down my feelings and everything. And even then, I didn't know that would lead to my interest in writing. Because I think I've been writing more than I've been painting or drawing.
Okay.
And
so you've got books coming out as well.
I'm still scared, but yes.
Shoulder tap.
I know. But it's patient with me.
Yeah.
I think I still enjoy the joy of writing without any pressure. Yeah, so I've been slowly releasing it with poems.
Okay.
And yeah, but I've been working on a book for like 2 years now.
Oh, wow. That's that's incredible. Something that you said that I wanted to latch onto. Oh, do you have creative parents, if I may ask?
I think not in the... Because to create as well is like beyond painting and everything.
Yes.
So I'd say on my father's side, he created, he's someone who studied up till I think standard 6.
Back then when they
Back
were
then, yeah.
students.
Yeah, because he's actually, I think, 88 now.
Oh, he's quite old. My father's 87.
Is it?
Yeah.
Wow, that is amazing. Yeah, sure. And he had a vision of creating a complex, and he created it. And
As in a living space.
a complex for a retail space.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so I would say in that sense, he's a creative.
Because
Yes.
he's a creator, actually.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then my mom, she's a teacher, but beyond that, I think she taught me like the nice things in life.
Like what?
In terms of like taste, like she's like,
So basically, this is your mother. Everything that's around here is your mother.
I think it's
So the
both of
taste
them.
level is, it's
I think it's
upper
both of
echelon.
them. Thank you.
I think it's both of them.
Yeah.
Yeah. If, like even this morning I was thinking about it. I'm like, I actually have got, like as expected, but both I inherited both sides of my parents.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I love that you have sort of removed this idea that one can be a creative, because we tend to sort of have titles that are only like, some of the work that I do is in advertising.
Yes.
And in advertising, you've got the creatives, and you've got the suits, and you've got strategists, and you've got, all these different roles.
Yes.
And whenever a problem comes in that has to be solved, it automatically gets shifted to the creatives.
And then it's drawn from them to the next.
Then it sort of moves through. And obviously in this 9 to 5 experience, but I love the fact that you've removed that, because in essence, if you create something, you're a creator. So you're creative in essence, and it's something that comes beyond the physical realm that we encounter every day. My father is he's 87. He actually used to paint when he was younger, funny enough, and he used to create typography as well. And I was actually having this conversation with a friend of mine to say, at some point when my father met my mother, he stopped painting because my mother, thought he wasn't very serious about life. Painting back in the day when really being a black artist wasn't, the norm as it is today. And he left all that world behind and literally destroyed all his paintings. And I was saying to my friend, I wish that my father actually kept those paintings, because today I could have been like, showed my kids, this is the lineage that you come from.
Do you think he took on anything creative afterwards?
Do I think?
He took on anything else that was creative?
He became a signwriter.
Signwriter.
Yeah, he worked for Coca-Cola for about 40 years, doing all the signs that you see on the roads. I think there was a time when literally every ghetto that you went to had all these red Coca-Cola signs. That was my dad. That's what he would do.
So it still continued there.
I suppose.
Yes.
Continue. But I think I got from him that aspect of creation as well. That it's not just, typography is, it seems like a very boring thing to do, but he looks at typography in a completely different way. When you drive with him in town, he'll look at something and be like, wow, this letter should be this way. And he analyzes things. So I got that a little bit from him as well. But talk about the merge of your father as a creator in the complex, and then your mother as a teacher, and how that influenced the art that you made.
I think, especially seeing my father, interestingly, for the longest time I thought there was no link between me and my father in terms of...
We all do.
Yeah, so...
And it's so direct.
Actually, yeah, and I think that was mostly because maybe in his projections of what he wanted for me versus what I wanted for my life. And luckily, I think I'm as stubborn as he is, first of all, and that's something I also realized recently, because he's very set in his ways, and I'm also very set in my own ways. And then beyond that, I think seeing him every day, because every day he'd wake up to the complex, picking papers, just taking care of his space, like constantly. And at first you're just like, why are you doing that? Like, you're a bit embarrassing. It's like, why are you picking papers when there are people to do that?
Yes.
And then only later, like when I opened a space where I understood that becomes your baby, where you will do everything for it. And I think that primary teaching was very important for me. And then also just to see someone like have a dream and be able to do it. and still, I think at 75, he did an extension of the space.
Wow.
And most people at 75,
So he was active at that point.
he's still active right now. I think it's just he's got dementia, so it has slowed him down, which is natural. I think it's important because he literally was always working, and okay, I'm always working, so there's another
So
link.
there's the correlation.
Yeah. And yeah, I also just had a dream to like have a space, and that's something I've been able to achieve. And I realized, I think with everything that was taught subliminally from his side, it just came through on my side.
What are some of the important lessons that you think you've got from him besides the work ethic?
I think constantly kept on telling us, don't work for someone. Like you better own, like he constantly told us, you have to own your space, own your space. And that even went into property. He would always say, stop renting, own a space, own a space. And for me, that I've taken even with my own practice, that I have to own my practice and lead the narrative, because if the moment you give it to someone else, they have their own vision for it.
Yes.
And I have my own vision. Sometimes you can express yours, but you won't be heard. But until you take it on yourself, then
Is that where the gallery comes from?
yes,
Okay.
definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And just a bit about the gallery. I think, there's obviously been a lot of artists that have come through that space. It feels pretty much like it's the tastemaker right now.
Oh wow! Oh wow!
Hey, would you? Is that something that you get a lot?
I think I've been realizing, your tastemaker, that's interesting. Thank you. I think what we've been able to do is cultivate a lot of new talent, like just giving them space, especially because we're really focused on group shows, and each group show is unique, meaning we've probably shown close to 100 creatives that would have probably not been seen if we had gone the traditional route, or if
What's
we
the
didn't
traditional
exist. Of maybe having a bunch of like maybe a stable of 20 artists and only showing those.
Okay.
Yeah, so for me, because I've seen, I think being so connected to the creative community, it's just like, whoa, this has to be seen, this has to be seen. And I think even in our archiving system, it'll always exist, there'll always be that reference. And it's interesting also to see some of the artists also be taken by the bigger institutes. And we
That have
just,
come through that space.
yes,
Yeah.
that came through the space. And some have actually been working with other spaces, but because we did maybe something very central and focused, it gave them that bridge to the next step. So we just really a bridge.
There's often this conversation of space, finding spaces to actually exhibit the work, finding spaces to create. When you started the studio, did you have a vision for it, besides the fact that you wanted to own the space and own the narrative? Did you have a vision?
A bit. To be honest, like it was as simple as I just wanted to open. So initially it was supposed to be a pop-up, like a 3 to 6 month pop-up. And the funny thing is that I didn't think it would become a gallery. I knew that it was, I think 2 years prior, I knew that I wanted to have a gallery. But in the moment of execution, I was thinking of, I just want an experience where people can, first of all, feel welcome in the space. And then the design really was based on that, the idea of just like warmth and everything. And then we opened with my work because I had a month to get everything up. So immediately I knew that my work was ready for that. And also it was just like, how did I wish for my work to be experienced? And I think how the gallery looks like and what it represents, that's how I wanted my work to be like felt. In a comfortable space, and also where you don't feel like you have to immediately evacuate, like you just can be in the space.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's actually how it feels. I mean, I remember walking past your gallery, and I actually walked in, and you were there, and you gave me a pamphlet.
Yes.
And I remember how warm the space was. And it's interesting that you bring this idea of warmth, because normally galleries have this like white wall thing. It feels very cold at times. So the intention was to have more of a warm experience. More of a human experience.
Yes, because I mean, without the people walking in, then it's not a gallery. It's just a cube that's colorful
Yes.
or white. So I think for me, I think have experienced other spaces like in this continent and outside. I had tension of like, it's not as pleasant. It doesn't feel like I belong in the space or I can see myself within the space. Yeah, so I wanted people to see themselves within the space.
Does that talk to the colors that you choose for the space as well?
Yes.
Yeah.
Actually, it was normally I have, like if I'm working on something, there's no influence of other people. But when I designed that, I came up with different palettes and I literally started sending it to, I've got a group on WhatsApp with my family. I sent them, I'm like, which one appeals the most to you? And then I sent it to my friends as well. And then it was just one design that exists. Everyone responded to that. I was like, that's it.
Wow.
Yeah.
Your family nogal.
Yes. Oh, they're my hugest critics.
amazing.
Yeah.
It's almost like having your own secret lab somewhere, sitting waiting to critique the work.
Well, they're not always present for that, but I think I knew its impact. Like, and I think deep down I knew of how big it was, but also not being aware of how big it is as as an initiative.
Yeah.
It's certainly. I mean, I use the word tastemaker. That's pretty huge.
It's huge. Pressure.
Do you feel some responsibility to present a certain thing, or do you I suppose you can get to the point where you're so big that you now have to create things in a certain way. Do you feel that responsibility, or do you sort of go with a more natural feeling?
I think my understanding of that is the responsibility that I've had or the weight that I've felt was to be almost like, I think now people see it as the space that is like, has become a savior for a lot of emerging artists. And also actually, interestingly, like artists that I looked up to, they also now like, they want to be part of the space. And it's a lot of responsibility, first of all. And I think if you've got a savior complex, you might want to be fully immersed into trying to save something that's bigger than you alone. And it would take community and other spaces opening. So for me, when I actually opened the space, it was just planting a seed to other creatives that you can open your own space and lead the narrative.
Yes.
You don't have to wait on a space.
Which is actually not the norm, especially in the arts world, for an artist to have a space that is open not just to themselves but to a community of other artists.
Yeah, so I think for me,
Why is that? Sorry, if I may ask. Do you know why that is? In terms of just not, I certainly don't get to experience lots of artists that actually have their own space.
I think it's mostly institutions like where we studied. They don't teach you to open a space. They're teaching you to be in a space. So throughout, you're being told, aspire for this. Like it's almost like a model where you start very in small galleries, you grow, get into museums, and then eventually you're like at the biggest institutes. And no one tells you you can actually build that big institute. Yeah. And I think for me, funny enough, BKhz has always been, like when I was dreaming about it, when I was younger, I was imagining, because I studied fashion, I thought I'd be opening stores that are as big as like your Louis Vuitton and your yours. So it wasn't even thinking of just one small space. It was just like a whole institute that has got spaces in different countries. So that's still the dream.
That's still the dream.
Yeah, and to be honest, I still like, I'm always channeling like the Louis Vuitton energy, because they've got, it's like the most premium brand in my taking, and just like how they're able to do things
For centuries. Well, wait, maybe I shouldn't say centuries. Maybe for a century. And still be relevant in mainstream culture, right?
Yes. So if BKhz could take on that as well, I mean, it's not going to happen overnight, and that's what I have to tell myself as well. Because the reality is that it's hard. Sometimes you're fighting the economy, sometimes you're fighting the space. There's so many
There's so many
factors.
different elements,
Yeah, but if you just have the dream and follow it through, it might happen 70 years or once I'm gone.
Yeah.
So that's interesting to me, because I was having a conversation actually with one of my nephews, and the conversation, the core of the conversation was about this idea of doing something for a very long time.
Yes.
And actually maintaining a certain level of quality throughout an elongated period, and delivering a product that is not instantaneous. Not the, yes, we all love Instagram, but it's a very instant culture. It's not necessarily as a platform. It's obviously going to exist for a very long time, but the consumption or the creation on the platform is very instantaneous.
Yes.
Whereas when you're creating on that level,
Yes.
You literally have to maintain a force for a very long time and actually pull through with it. And that's not the norm with a lot of the things that we do. We almost want this instant gratification, but you're looking at a 70-year process. You're looking at, it's almost like a generational main way of thinking, rather than expecting the results to happen now.
That's true, because I believe in time, that everything happens in time. I can be impatient for some things, funny enough. But, and I think also technology almost is kind of like making things so accessible that you got this illusion that you're in control. And secondly, that results should happen now because everything is happening. And the awareness of, for instance, if I look at your Instagram, like if I see you in Bali, next thing you open a company, it feels
It's
like
instant,
it feels
It's
like
you just switch from this to that.
yeah, and it also feels like that should happen for my life as well.
Yes.
Yeah, and I think for me, it quickly registered that you can't do that, because first of all, it discounts your experience. You could be having the best time of your life with just your family, having like a regular meal, and all of a sudden you see this image, and then it just takes away that. So immediately on my side, I started actually unfollowing everyone who made me feel envious. Like it on the reels, like I couldn't. And also it was people that I look up to, because I was seeing everything happen now. It was just like, no, you actually like taking away my experience of
Yes.
my own life,
Yes.
because also that's its own path. It'll take on at its own pace, and also not knowing that someone else is looking at me and they're like, they want that. Yeah, so it's just like being present for my own becoming.
I love that you bring that up, this idea of presence,
Yes.
because it's almost like what you're saying and what I'm hearing, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, is that you're actually present to your own experience, and you're letting that unfold rather than trying to be present to somebody else's experience, which is not yours, essentially. And you're letting that unfold, and through letting it unfold, you're actually experiencing a much more joyous and fulfilling life.
That's true. I think even running a business has taught me I have to be present for today, not even tomorrow, today. Because the moment I start thinking about tomorrow, my anxiety just like goes up.
Yes.
So if I
'Cause
can,
you actually don't know what's going to happen tomorrow.
I have no idea what will happen in an hour's time. So why should I be stressing about an hour's time? So if I can just be here in this moment, then, and also especially if things are going good today. For instance, I mean, I've looked at my business. Sometimes your funds have dropped so low that you're just like, I don't know how I'm gonna take care of next month. But if today is okay, surely tomorrow will be fine. Yeah, and that has really, like, it has pulled my mind into just existing in today. Even people will be asking, like, what are your Christmas plans? I'm like, I have no idea, because I'm not trying to be there. I'm just trying to be in today.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's a very admirable quality to have, but I think it's a quality that's accessible to all of us.
Yes, we all have it.
And I don't think that a lot of us are actually aware of that. Because that's where the power is, right? It's not okay, how much money can I make or how much can I accumulate and all of that. Yes, definitely accumulate those things, but if you're not actually present in that experience, you'll probably find yourself accumulating all these things and being unhappy at the end of the day.
That's true. And also, I think just out of readings and podcasts I've been listening to, it's like what is also important is like the process of getting there. If you happy, because there's some people who stress out about an outcome, like if I just get this 100 million, and then I'll be happy.
Yes.
While that drive to that road trip to that has been making you anxious and angry and everything and greedy as well. I think for me, I flipped it where I'm very generous with my funds. I treat myself like on the most mundane things. Like this morning, I went to the gym. I was like, yeah, you woke up at 6, you went to the gym, here's a treat. And
You're treating your body, actually.
Yes.
You're having a conversation with, this body that God gave you, actually.
Yeah. And also, out of my happiness with that, it extends to everyone else. Because if, for instance, I was stressed out and panicky about everything, then
You
everyone...
probably take that energy there as well.
Yeah. So I think the idea of presence and just being happy with where you are today will literally give you a great experience to the next. And also, who says you have to accumulate those great funds? Like, will you actually be happy? Will they make you happy?
Exactly.
Yeah. And I think I've had a moment where I think I had the biggest balance of just like funds that were accessible, that I didn't have to go to savings. And I was so unhappy. I was like, whoa, what does this mean? And that's when I realized that money actually isn't the source of happiness. Like, it gives you access, it gives you flexibility and also a lot of leeway, but that's all it does. It's not, and a lot of people equate that if only I have that, I'll be happy.
In fact, I was actually thinking about this, the idea of money, because money itself doesn't actually have an energy.
It's energy, actually. Money is energy.
Yes, but what I'm saying is of itself, it's not the physical money.
Yes.
When you grab it, it doesn't have energy, but
Yes.
it can create a certain energy around you that maybe people might interact with and say, oh, that person is this or that person is that. But what you are talking about is the journey to actually, finding a space where you can experience every moment. I think that for me sounds like a much more beautiful proposition, because you're present, in every single moment.
And I think also to write a grace list, like to have a grace list, to remind yourself of things you're grateful for.
Yes.
And what you have as well, because easily, and I think South Africa literally shows you all the contrasts, that you might be complaining, like some people be complaining in their SUV, like if only I could get a plane. Like there's someone else who's walking, there's someone else who's even just trying to get through life. And it's just, if you can just be present for what you have right now.